So let's get started on our palmiers. Here we have our puff dough that has been sitting in the refrigerator for 6 to 8 hours. So I'm going to let it sit at room temperature for 5 minutes. In the meanwhile, I have here prepped with me a plate of dry flour, a rolling pin, a really sharp knife, and a bench knife. So let's make the cinnamon sugar, for which over here I have quarter of a cup, that is 50 grams of powdered sugar, to which I will add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and a few pinches of salt. If you don't like salt, you can omit that. And then we'll mix these three things up really well until all the salt and cinnamon is evenly distributed throughout the sugar. And we'll now keep it aside. I also have over here 1 tablespoon of milk at room temperature that we'll be brushing on the palmiers. But for now, we'll keep that aside as well. Let's get started on the dough. First, we'll unwrap the dough out of the plastic wrap. And please don't throw away this plastic wrap, we'll be reusing it. So keep it aside for now. We're gonna start by sprinkling some dry flour on our work surface. Remember, you don't sprinkle from the top, we will sprinkle it from the side. So we'll sprinkle some dry flour on the surface, then some dry flour on the puff dough as well. Remember, we decided in the last lesson that we're going to keep the lip of the dough on our right hand side. So I have kept it on my right hand side. Now we'll start beating the dough. Since the dough has been sitting in the fridge for so long, it is really hard. So to make it pliable, we will beat it about 20 to 30 times to make it a little easy to work with. Now we'll start rolling the dough. When we'll start rolling the dough, you will realize that the sides of the dough tend to curve and it does not necessarily resemble a rectangle. So to counter that, we're just going to roll out on the edges of the dough, the four corners of the dough. That way, it helps us balance out that curvature and make it resemble a rectangle. We will continue to roll the dough and we will also use our bench knife again to maintain the shape. In case you feel that it is still becoming curved, even if you're using the bench knife, don't worry about it. We're going to cut out the edges and make it all neat. But for now, we will continue to roll the dough. We have to be really quick with the dough because it has butter and we don't want to melt the butter, because if it melts, then it will start leaking and we won't get the layers. So we'll really quickly continue to roll the dough, but we will also continue to relax the dough and ensure that it does not stick to our work surface. In case we feel it is sticking to our work surface, we will apply some dry flour. This time our aim with the dough is to roll it until it is about 18 inches by 8 inches or about 1/3 of a centimeter thick. As you'll notice that now my dough has some really curved edges, but that's fine. We'll cut it. It's rough puff. The word rough is in the name. Again, we'll continue to relax the dough throughout the process and we'll sprinkle dry flour whenever we feel the need and continue rolling. Once I feel satisfied, I will stop rolling, but until then, here we will try to roll it out evenly until we have an 18-inch by 8-inch rectangle. I feel we've reached the 1/3 centimeter thickness, so I'm going to stop rolling. Now, using the sharp knife that we had taken, we are going to cut out the rough edges. Now, while cutting, you have to ensure that you do not drag your knife through the puff dough. You have to place your knife where you want to cut, apply pressure, and lift the knife. Apply pressure and lift the knife. Do not drag it through the dough. These pieces of scrap that we have from our puff dough, we're going to collect these and we're going to use this in the bonus recipe that is at the end of the whole course. That's the last lesson of the course. If you feel you can't cut straight sides, like without using a ruler or without using any help, feel free to use a ruler to cut these straight sides. Or if you feel you can do it freehand, that is fine as well. But remember, you will not drag your knife through the dough, you will apply pressure and lift the knife and cut again. We'll continue the process until we have a neat rectangle with us, and we will keep the scraps aside. We will not throw away these scraps. We have a beautiful recipe at the end of the course. Now, the plastic wrap, remember that I'd asked you to keep aside? We're going to keep all our scrap pieces in it and wrap it up really nicely and put it in the refrigerator until we get to that lesson. So here we have a rectangle. So now we're gonna take the milk and pastry brush that we have prepped and keep it ready. We will relax our dough one last time to ensure that it has not stuck to the surface. And then we will take a flat baking tray over here with us that I have lined with a silicone mat. You can always use parchment paper as well, whatever's available to you, and keep that ready. Now, we will brush the surface of the puff dough with the milk. Ensure you evenly coat the whole surface with the milk. Even the edges, do not forget the edges, and brush it nicely. Then we'll take our cinnamon sugar and start sprinkling it on the whole surface. Again, don't forget the edges. We want flavor on all corners of the palmier. So sprinkle the sugar really nicely throughout the whole surface. While sprinkling, also ensure that you sometimes pat down and make sure that the sugar is actually sticking to the milk that we've put. And we will leave aside about 2 to 3 teaspoons of the sugar, the cinnamon sugar, for later on. Now, using your bench knife, we will roughly mark the center of the dough. This is like a rough marking. We don't want to cut through the dough, we're just making a marking for us to see. You can use a knife as well to do that. Now, from one side, I am going to make a fold that is about 1 centimeter thick. This fold will help me roll the dough easier. Now, where I've made the 1 centimeter fold, I will start rolling on it, and I will continue to roll this until I reach the center marking that we've made. Then I will press down on the dough to ensure that it is nicely stuck together and there are no air pockets. We will repeat this process on the other side. Again, I'll make a 1 centimeter thick crease or fold and then roll on that fold. Again, we will press down so that there are no excess air pockets and all the layers get stuck to each other. Using both your hands, you will start pressing on the dough from all sides. We will keep it sideways, press on it. We will keep it straight, press on it. We'll keep it upside down and press on it. This way the palmier layers get stuck together and there are no excess air pockets in the whole roll. So now we're going to start cutting the palmiers. Ensure you have your baking tray ready. We will cut about a centimeter thick palmiers. You can always alter the thickness. I like them 1 centimeter thick. And this is rough. I'm not going to measure it. I'm just going to roughly start cutting them. So take your piece of palmier and gently press it in from both sides. So it starts to resemble a heart. We will gently press it in and start placing it on the prepped baking tray we have. We will repeat this process with all the pieces. We will cut it, we will press it in from both sides and place it on the baking tray. Ensure you place these pieces about 2 inches apart because they tend to spread when you bake them. This way, you will repeat this with all the pieces and slice up all the dough until you're completely done. Now, we will gently press down on all the palmiers. We have to be very gentle with this press. We just want to make sure that the layers are stuck together. That's it. We're not trying to make it bigger or anything. Just press it down enough so that they're stuck. Now, remember the cinnamon sugar we kept aside? We're going to take that cinnamon sugar and sprinkle it on all the pieces. Just a light sprinkling on all the pieces. This helps get a better color on the palmiers when they bake. Now we'll keep these palmiers in the refrigerator to chill for 10 to 15 minutes. While these palmiers were chilling, I preheated my oven to 190 degrees Celsius. Now I'll bake these palmiers at 190 degrees for about 20 to 22 minutes or until they have a nice golden brown color on top. And while they bake, I'm going to clear out my workspace. The palmiers are out of the oven and they are beautifully golden brown. They've expanded in size, they have a nice golden color, all the layers have opened up perfectly. We're going to let them cool on the baking tray for about 10 minutes before we transfer them onto a wire rack. Now we'll transfer them on the wire rack and let them cool completely. Transferring them on a wire rack ensures that they cool evenly from the top and the bottom so that we don't have any sogginess or any moisture left. I'll transfer them and then we'll taste them once they're nice and cool. So it's been a while and they're nice and cool. Now I'm going to transfer them on a plate. I like to keep my palmiers all stacked up one on top of the other. And here they are, ready to be eaten. I'm going to break a piece for you to see, and you will see that it is so nice and flaky, and our rough puff dough looks so beautiful and all the flakiness is coming apart. All the layers are coming apart. Let's move on to the next lesson.